today I want to talk about my 10-gallon aquarium. This aquarium was inspired by the hillstream loach, which is a really cool fish that you can find in fast-flowing hill streams in Southeast Asia. So first, let's talk about the equipment. This is a 10-gallon tank, as I mentioned. And in order to get the fast-flowing water, I actually put in 2 filters here. So in total, the filters circulate the water, the entire volume of the tank, about 15 times an hour. First, we have this one. This is a hang on the back filter by Marina, the Marina S10. It has a pump right there, which is kind of inside the tank. And the benefit to that, having the pump inside the tank, is that in the event of a power outage or something like that, the filter restarts on its own when the power comes back on. You know, if you had the external pumps, like the pump in the filter in the back, then usually you have to add some extra water into the filter to prime it and get it going before it starts circulating again. So that's pretty useful, and besides, this filter is very cheap. Now the second filter is this one. It's very interesting. It's not very powerful, but it does have a very unique design. This is an Aqueon AT10 filter. And it's an internal filter. The filter assembly pretty much sits totally inside the tank. And I got this filter, well, first to just boost the filtration a little bit in the tank. And also because you can see here, it has this nice little, I guess, output of the filter, which is adjustable in direction. And I can have it, so right now I have it spraying in the back of the tank, but you can pretty much spray it whatever direction you want, and that will help capture the effect of the hill stream. The light I'm using here, this is in Aqueon. A lot of things are Aqueon because they are pretty cheap and high quality, I think. But this Aqueon light, it's kind of a basic LED. It's not that powerful. So for plants that require bright light, this would probably be not enough. But this Aqueon light, it's just the OptiBright light, and it has a pretty good range. You can turn on the blue light, you can toggle the blue lights on and off independently from the other colors. So, but yeah, I just usually have the whole spectrum on. Now, the substrate I'm using, you can see all the different kinds of pieces of substrate and hardscape here. Yeah, the substrate I'm using, it's the fluorite red mostly, mixed in with a little bit of this really inert gravel that I use as a top dressing for succulents. I really like the color, that kind of nice orange color you can see mixed in. And so I actually wanted to use that as my substrate, but I ran out really fast, so I had to buy another little bag of fluorite red. Now, fluorite red is a substrate I've used before, and I've had really good luck with it. You know, it holds onto the roots really well. It seems to deliver decent plant growth. Although, reading online, people classify it as inert. I think that the power is that it can capture nutrients from the water column and sort of store them there. My chemistry in that area isn't so strong, so I can't guarantee that's what's happening. But from what I read, this substrate can store some nutrients, and it naturally has some different minerals and things that your plants can use, although maybe not in the most usable form. But if you have something that's not that heavy into feeding the substrate, I think that this one works pretty well, and it's kind of the old school one. Now these rocks are just rocks that I collected from the beach. Before I collected the rocks, I read a little bit about my local geology and how to identify rocks and what different things were, just to make sure that these rocks were aquarium safe. And then I prepared them by simply boiling them really carefully, as I heard that some might explode, and then scrubbing them off and And yeah, and then just adding them to the tank. Let's talk about plants now. So yeah, as you can see, this is a planted tank, and this plant I really, really like. This is the Cryptocoryne beckettii. So you can see this plant has leaves that are like a few different kinds of leaves. It has these green leaves, which are just like short and narrow and on the end of these long stalks. Some of the green leaves are a little bit curly, like you can see that one right there. And then you can also see some more brownish, reddish leaves that are a little bit deeper, maybe a little bit more curled. And yeah, and the explanation for that is that this plant was originally purchased as a tissue culture plant from Petco. And in the tissue culture, they're not grown completely underwater as they are here in the aquarium. So the plant has to go through a period where the new leaves that are grown underwater are a little bit different. They're adapted to growing underwater. So those leaves are the reddish ones, the kind of bigger reddish, more red leaves. Now, generally, there's a phenomenon called crypt melt. So crypt is short for Cryptocoryne. And when people put crypts from the pet store into their tanks, a common thing that happens is that the leaves melt away or die back, and then the new submerged growth happens. But in these tissue culture plants, as you see, they don't really melt. The tissue culture leaves seem to be okay, just hanging out underwater like this. But it's pretty nice, and I really like the color and the look of the submerged leaves. So I hope that growth takes off soon, and we get a nice little crypt patch here. The tissue culture cup actually contained, I think, 7 or 8 of these plants. So I have a little patch here, and then the other patch is behind the wood in the background there, you can see. And you can see a combination of the submerged growth and then the tissue culture growth. This Cryptocoryne beckettii is supposed to be one of the smaller crypts. So it's supposed to be about a height of 6 inches or so at the max. And I put it in the background because I thought it would have a really nice effect together with this one. It's a little bit dirty because I had a big bloom of something or other in the first few weeks of setting up the tank. And slowly that's getting better. But yeah, you can still see we have some fuzzy stuff on it. It's just that's just kind of the algae or whatever it is, kind of like a white fuzzy algae that gets trapped in the leaf tips. So it's not actually growing there. If I scrub off the leaves, this thing will come off right away. But this is the Cyperus helferi. So Cyperus helferi was one of the plants that was favored by Takashi Amano, who, if you know who that is, that's one of the important figures in the planted tank hobby. Now, this Cyperus helferi is a grass that it's in the same genus as papyrus. So it's the only fully aquatic member of that genus, and it's supposed to grow pretty tall. So the idea here was that the Cyperus would kind of go up and over the top of the tank and have a cool effect like you can see with valves sometime. Except that this is kind of a finer leaf plant, gives more detail. And it's also, I found this one at PetSmart in their tissue culture section. They have a very limited selection, but this is one of the few. So these are actually now readily available. And you can see it's been growing pretty well. The ones here on the side haven't been growing that well, maybe because of the amount of light. But you can see how much growth in just 1 month happened for this little patch here. And I just wanted to have this plant to get a nice kind of grassy effect in my tank. That's a Bucephalandra. We'll talk a bit more about that later. This plant here is anubias. I think the variety is Nana. So this anubias is a very robust and kind of classic aquarium plant. I put it here to provide some cover for the hillstream loach. Actually, you can see she's hiding back there. Right, but you know, these plants provide really good cover with their medium-sized leaves, and they're very slow-growing epiphyte plants. What epiphyte means is that you have to attach them to the rocks or the hardscape instead of burying them into the soil or the substrate. And eventually the roots will take hold. So I just got these maybe a week or two ago. So you can see I just kind of wedged it in between these two rocks, and this one's wedged in between the rock and the driftwood. So they haven't, I don't think they've quite taken hold yet. That usually takes about a month or more. And these anubias are really attractive in my opinion. If you look on the leaves, you can see some nice white spots which kind of shimmer in the light. If the light's off, you can't see them. It's actually really hard for me to see them now. But in person, you can see a nice, shiny, speckly leaf. And these look pretty nice. You can see they have some new growth. Now, here's the big patch of Bucephalandra. Again, this Bucephalandra that I got, it came from Petco, and all of these plants came in a single cup, a single one of those tissue culture cups. Again, these Bucephalandra, they're related to the anubias. They're also an epiphyte plant. You can see they have their nice shiny spots, much more clear than the anubias. But this is a beautiful plant. It's very valued for the small leaf size, the ease of care, and how nice it looks. So I really like this patch here, and this is also a place where the celestial pearl danios like to hang out and hide if they're being chased around too much. So it provides a useful little habitat as well. And finally, the last plant in here is this Java fern. This Java fern I got from one of those tubes at Petco. And the tubes are supposed to guarantee that your plant's snail-free and algae-free. So I did want the tank to be snail-free. This Java fern is very interesting. It's not the typical Java fern because you can see the leaf margins are a little bit jagged. So I think that this is more in line with the Tropica variety, although it wasn't labeled as such at Petco. I just found it and I was intrigued by it, so I picked it up. And the purpose of this Java fern here is it's supposed to cover this filter as it grows up. So I'm not sure how tall it's going to get, but I hope that it'll be able to cover this, at least part of the sponge here. Now I want to talk about the animals and the livestock that inhabit this tank. So the main fish here are these 6 white clouds. You can see them. Yeah, one of my white clouds has a little bit of a kind of a weird back, if I can focus on her. But yeah, let's try to focus a bit. Okay, that's a nice male white cloud, I think. He's kind of the boss of the tank. Might be hard to pick up on him. But yeah, you get the idea. These white clouds are a really common fish. Everyone says that they're underrated, which leads me to believe that they're probably just rated fine. But they are a really nice fish. You can see they have a lot of cool activity going on. They're good swimmers. They're very robust fish. I use these during the cycling period. And they're just beautiful, and I haven't lost any. The other fish I have in here are these 4 celestial pearl danios. This really big one I got, someone was giving her away because, well, that was their only one left, and they wanted to have other friends. She was kind of bossy when she first came in a few days ago, but she's kind of chilled out a lot and adjusting well now. You can see there she's going after the other fish a little bit. Yeah, let's see if we can focus on these guys. There we go. When the celestial pearl danios first came in, I bought 5 of them, but 2 of them died for unknown reasons. They seemed to be doing fine, but then the day after I got them, they died. And I just don't really know why. When I went back to the store, it turned out that his fish, the store owner said that his fish also, he lost 5 of them in his tank a few days after I bought mine, and they actually stopped selling them, and they started treating with erythromycin. So I don't know, maybe it was something in the tank. But yeah, but the remaining ones have been pretty stable. They've been doing okay for a few days, so I hope that nothing too serious or that these guys aren't affected. A lot of people say that the celestial pearl danio is shy, but all of these fish from different sources, the day after I got them, they've been exploring the tank like this. They never really hide unless they're chasing each other. Then they zoom into the little nooks and crannies. But yeah, they don't hide. They're very active. They're always looking for food, easy to feed. I haven't had any problems except for the 2 mysterious deaths. And I hope to get some more, replenish my school a little bit, and I'll put them in quarantine first. But yeah, eventually I'll have some more to replenish the school. Now, besides that, we also have the hillstream loach, who I don't see at the moment. I might put some B-roll in for her. We also have 5 of these Amano shrimps. When I first got the Amano shrimp, they were really tiny, and you could barely see them, and I was worried. I was even worried that they weren't Amanos, that they were mislabeled. Because if you've ever had Amano shrimp before, at least for me, when I had them in the past, they were huge, and I had a tank for 10 years before I had to move, and the Amano shrimp I got as some of the first inhabitants. And those shrimp were there the whole time. They never died. They were just always a constant presence. And most of that time, they were about between 2 and 3 inches, I'd say. So just like a huge shrimp. These ones, when I first got them, you could barely see them, but just a few weeks they've grown up. And they've become not huge, but a little bit, probably more than an inch mostly. I have 5 Amano shrimp in here, and they're kind of, hiding around different places, so they might be hard to see. I also have 3 nearite snails. Here, maybe this is a little bit too explicit action for you, but yeah, so these are 2 of the nearite snails. It's a male and a female. Oh, there's the hillstream loach. Hello, you can see her tail popping out. I also have another another nearite snail, which is very different looking. It's kind of olive colored, and it has the big spikes. So these are actually called, the scientific name, the Latin name is called Clithon corona. And I actually like these. They kind of aren't as colorful or vivid as the other Neratina snails, but I kind of like these. They're supposed to be better algae eaters. They're smaller, and I am personally very fond of the shapes and colors that you get with these ones. Yeah, hillstream loach working back there. And that does it for this view of my 10-gallon aquarium. Here we get things back into focus, and you can see tank with a lot of activity, a lot of fun to keep, and pretty easy and low tech.